The 15th BRICS Summit is expected to focus on the bloc's funding capabilities as part of the gathering's broader agenda. That says there's a desire to broaden new development banks' borrowing basket. But of course, it's not expected to be without controversy, as some civil rights groups have also announced pickets against the presence of Russia in South Africa. Let's take stock of these developments for you. Bring in our team. Tumisang Ndlovu is at the Sandton Convention Center for us. But we start with our business editor, Xolani Mbanjwa, also there. And Xolani, we've heard from some civil rights groups that they plan to picket on the margins of this conference. What else do we know so far?
Well, good morning, Ayanda, and it's quite a good day here, a sunny day and a lot of security in and around the Sandton Convention Center. And we know South Africa always puts its best foot forward when hosting international events, and it doesn't get bigger than this when you've got the global community and its eyes peeled on the developments here. Ayanda, I have got another Ayanda here, Dr. Ndlovu, who is a member of the BRICS Business Council, and he joins us now to talk more about what to expect today. Dr. Ndlovu, thank you very much for your time. It's quite busy in the background there in Exhibition 1. Already the proceedings are getting underway in a couple of minutes. What can we expect today in terms of proceedings?
Well, thanks. First of all, I should say so far so good. We've had a series of good activities over the past weekend at Gallagher Estate, and now the center of gravity, so to say, has shifted to the Sandton Convention Center. Today we've got the Business Forum. The Business Forum, of course, now is the culminating part of the business activities in the summit. And essentially there will be three parts to this. First of all, obviously it's going to be opened by our Minister Ibrahim Patel. Then there's going to be a series of roundtable discussions. And those roundtable discussions will cover such important areas as the just energy transition, areas around agriculture, areas around market access, particularly for SMMEs, and of course one of the most important parts, which is part of the theme of the conference, is going to be a round panel discussion on the African Continental Free Trade Area. And of course the Secretary General, who's the South African, of course we're proud of that, spoke to us a bit at Gallagher Estate, but he will be here as part of the panel today. Then in the afternoon, a very important part is that this business forum will then be joined by the heads of states of the BRICS countries for them to come and deliver messages of support, each one of them, to the business community, essentially encouraging the business leaders to continue expanding trade partnerships amongst the BRICS countries. So that's really the agenda for today.
Let's talk about something on the sidelines. It's a big, important day, but we've heard from the Helen Suzman Foundation, Amnesty International, and the Ukraine Association of South Africa saying they will be holding pickets in Cape Town, in Durban, and here in Sandton around the presence of Russia at this particular summit. We know as far as Russia is concerned, recently there was the Russia-Africa Summit, but they haven't been seen on an international stage outside of those forums. South Africa is known as a democracy where people are allowed to voice their opinions. This particular picket or marches that are going to be taking place are against what BRICS is doing in terms of being a member with Russia, of course, taking into consideration the big issue of the war with Ukraine. As a member of the BRICS Business Council and a business leader, what do you say about those who are voicing their opinions through pickets and marches?
Well, I think the important thing is to always remember is that South Africa is a constitutional democracy. In 1994, I think we signed an important pact. We got into an important pact as South African citizens, essentially contained in our constitution. And part of that is for us as a democracy to allow certain freedoms. And those freedoms include the right to express your views. And I think this is something that we have to defend and protect as South Africans, because the alternative takes us down a very dangerous route. So I think we will have different views on issues, and I think all South Africans are free in a legal way, in a correct way, to express their views. And I think to me, there's nothing wrong with people expressing their views as long as it is done consistent with our own laws, which means in this particular case it must be peaceful. Another important element, of course, is to understand that South Africa respects the rule of law. And this debate around Russia has been going on, and you know how South Africa has navigated this path very delicately, trying to reconcile our membership of international organizations, including BRICS, at the same time trying to make sure that we're true to basically our own international legal obligations. And I think we've acted in a manner consistent with that. So personally, I am comfortable that it is correct that BRICS is continuing the way, in the form it is continuing today. That's completely consistent with our constitutional dispensation. Equally, I would recognize and respect the right of those who want to express a contrary view to do so, but all of us must act within the limits of our laws.
Dr. Ndlovu, thank you very much for your time this morning. That is Dr. Ayanda Ndlovu, a well-known businessman and a member of the BRICS Business Council, of course talking about what has been planned around the precinct here as the BRICS bloc of nations are meeting for the BRICS 15th summit here at the Sandton Convention Center, talking about that issue where the civil rights groups have announced their plans to picket, and of course against South Africa's hosting of the Russian Federation. And of course we know the President Vladimir Putin is not going to be here, but his delegation will be here. But that has not stopped those who feel South Africa should not be so close to the Russians to voice their opinions through pickets and marches. Back to you, Ayanda, in studio.
Absolutely. Xolani, stand by because we're watching this international story from a number of vantage points. Tumisang is just a stone throw away from you. She also joins us now live. And Tumisang, there are various discussions to take place, including, of course, expanding BRICS funding capabilities.
Oh, indeed, Ayanda, that is going to be a topical matter at the 15th BRICS Summit. $100 billion was initially capitalized for the 5 years, in the previous 5 years rather, and that resulted in a growth in trade between BRICS bloc member countries increasing about 53%, and there is of course an anticipation of further growth, and an ease in funding is going to unlock all that. We know that the BRICS New Development Bank was formed in 2013 to counter what the offerings of the likes of the World Bank and the IMF would be providing, essentially doing things for themselves within the member states of the BRICS bloc. How much of this discussion is going to be ventilated, we will definitely find out, especially towards the end of today's proceedings when we get a feedback on what exactly have these countries agreed upon, easing the funding gaps that may exist. But at the same time, when you speak of the expansion there, it must be noted that there's also that discussion around the expansion or inclusion of other members to join the BRICS bloc, and that's where the funding capabilities are also likely to grow, Ayanda.
All right, Tumisang Ndlovu and Xolani Mbanjwa, part of our business team, watching the 15th BRICS Summit as it starts at the Sandton Convention Center. To both of you, thanks very much indeed.